everybody. I'm just back from the lake, nice and relaxed, ready to head to run camp. How you doing?
Dude, I am feeling saucy, dude. I am sitting in my stretchy pants in the office, relaxing and still enjoying the festivities and the feast of Thanksgiving. We hope you all had a absolutely wonderful weekend and a fantastic Thanksgiving with your families. Folks, it's November 28th, 2022. Welcome aboard. You're listening to the Crushing Iron Podcast, and this is episode 637.
Yes, it is. And honestly, I just got home and ate some turkey leftovers, so if I fall asleep, man, just keep it rolling.
You get hit with the tryptophan, or is that what they say?
But yeah. I heard that's all kind of a myth, but I don't know.
It is a myth,
Okay.
but there's something to be said for just feasting in general. I mean, I went heavy on, what was it, like Wednesday or Thursday, Friday. I went hard. I had a little bit late night chess pie, like pumpkin chess pie with a little bit of ice cream. I woke up each morning. I slept decent, but woke up and my resting heart rate through the night was like 5 or 6 beats higher than normal because there's so many carbohydrates and so much like last second sugar. I'm sure my body was like insulin spiking like a roller coaster at Kings Island all night long. And so last night I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do a little bit of experiment. I'm gonna eat lighter earlier. So I got done eating like 5. Then I was like, I'm not gonna have any dessert, and I'm gonna see what kind of impact it has on my sleep. Slept till 6:30, which for me is like noon, and my resting heart rate was 7 beats lower than it was the previous 2 nights. So
Wow.
Listen, we talk a lot about the fuel that goes in your body, junk in and junk out, as they say. And listen, the last 3 or 4 days, most people have been junking it up, but nothing wrong with that. You got to live a little, but we're headed to run camp, but we're usually junking it up there, as well as we run 2 or 3 times a day with about 30 of our other athletes, and that begins on Tuesday for us. But today you got a podcast, and if it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe, and just podcasts in general. Your time is very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through, like we will today. We work with a wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner level triathletes looking at their very first 5K or sprint, all the way up through elite level amateurs trying to get back to Kona, and everyone in between and from all over the world. And we'll use the feedback loop we have with them and training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion of the day. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group, which you can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question, we'll let you right in, and we'll go in there oftentimes and do a little bit of a Q&A with the team or with the community in there, and check the vibe and the pulse, and answer as many questions as we can. Great community, a lot of awesome people in there, so feel free to participate. Don't be a lurker, but get some feedback in an oftentimes confusing sport. There's a lot of experienced people in there willing to lend a hand, so reach out and grab it. But that's it. We don't do sponsors, we don't do ads, but we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. I noticed you're really in the heart rate lately. That's cool. And I went up to this lake. I mean, the real reason, the number one reason I even go up there is my buddy's house on Lake Petenwell up in mid-state Wisconsin, out in the middle of nowhere, and it's to get good sleep. It's like one the top reason, because you just get up there and it's dead quiet, nothing going on. It's just out in the middle of nothing with that water. And I know water has to have some kind of effect on people. And
I think water is one of the 8th wonders of the world in terms of like getting your body to relax and release tension and fight all kinds of things up. I think it's the peace of all peacefulness is the water.
Yeah, I agree. And as I get older, I don't know, you're probably not there. You're a young man. I get I wake up quite a bit, typically throughout the night, it seems like these days. And I don't know if that's caffeine or sugar. Like you said, you're eating too late, all kinds of reasons probably, but no matter what goes on up there, it's just like a pizza fest usually and all this kind of thing. And I just sleep like a baby right through. It's weird. I don't know.
listen, I think everyone has that kind of like place where they just sleep like they're in a cocoon. Like my mom said the same thing. She's not a very good sleeper. She was up here for Thanksgiving and she goes back in this like back bedroom we have by Hayden's room and it's pitch black and she sleeps like the best she's ever slept. She's like, God, she sleeps in, she goes to bed early, she sleeps through the night. Yeah, it's interesting though. And I've been tracking like my heart rate and HRV. I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts about stuff like that, just to kind of get more in tune with it. And one of the ones I listened to was like just based on if you're trying to just like live a better life and have like and just like track it for health. And one of the biggest things to track was your resting heart rate at night. And just like it's a sign of low inflammation, it's a sign of, low stress, it's a sign of great sleep, good food and good feeling, right fuel, right time kind of thing. And then before we go into our topic today, he did say, I wanted to mention this anyway, but he said there was a study in HRV, heart rate variability. The higher the score, usually the healthier and more fit you are. And there was a study done that simply doing a gratitude list or a gratitude writing, if you will, before bed raised your HRV. I mean, this is something that you and I talk about a ton. We've even talked about, on the podcast a lot, was an attitude of gratitude. Yeah. And just like the simple effects it has on your mind, to be grateful and to be thankful and what that does to your stress level, because we get so oftentimes wrapped up in honestly just like petty first world problems. The rest of the world's like, really, like this is what you're stressing about. So it says little things impact you in a big way. And that's also kind of the topic for today. In the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about the why, the what, and planning out and setting boundaries and time management for next year. But we always kind of do some digging around and training and philosophy for looking for the next year and how we can raise the bar. And we get questions a ton. Like I know you and I both field these questions. We get emails, text messages, even athletes within our squad will ask, like, what are some great predictors of, qualifying for Kona? Or what's a great predictor of a sub 130 half marathon? Or how can I go from, a 13.5-minute mile to an 8-minute mile? How do these people make these leaps? How do these people make these journeys? And most times they want answers that are concrete set data points where it's like, hey, you have to hit this metric by this metric by this metric by, at this date to progress to this, and a 125 half marathon will set you up for a 255 open marathon, or a 5.5 hour 70.3 will set you up for an 1120 full arm. Like everyone wants stuff like that. But what people don't oftentimes ask, if you hear any kind of like sniffling or Cheeto crunching in the background, it's my 6-year-old. He's back there crushing some Netflix as we're spending some quality time together before I head out for run camp. We just got done playing a little bit of ping pong. But so if you hear that, I apologize. But and so again, everyone asks these for like these data points. But you and I both work and we've got hundreds of athletes on our team spread across multiple coaches and tons of success. I mean, we had like, I think 10 Kona qualifiers in the last 14 months. You've got first-time Ironman finishers. You got people on the podium. You got people PR. You have people doing distance they've never seen before. And I always kind of go back and look, kind of again, as we mentioned frequently, when we say top performers, we don't always mean the best of the fastest. We mean the ones who get the most out of themselves and the most ability and opportunity out of their bodies. And I came up with kind of 6 main things that these athletes have as characteristics. And I think these are important to go over as people kind of look to have actionable items they can focus on for 2023 is, I'm going to do a 5K in 20 minutes, or I'm on my FTP to go to 280, or I want to finally get under 2 minutes per 100 in the swim. Those are all great, right? Goals are fantastic. Metrics are great. Data is great. But the fact of the matter is that you have to have specific, in my opinion, specific characteristics and a certain type of mentality and things you're willing to commit to on a mental and emotional level to be able to reach the physical things. Like it can't just be, I want this, right? Or I hope to have this. You have to have these traits and you have to master those first before you get before you get the other, because mastering these traits will allow you to reach these certain PRs, these certain times, these certain data points you want to achieve in training. And the first one, and this was the easiest one to come across as I kind of think about these athletes' personalities, is number one, they have a great perspective. And a great perspective means they have a great perspective on life and how triathlon fits into their life. None of them are obsessed with triathlon. They love triathlon. They do it. They use it as a way to get better at who they are and their relationships and how they treat their spouse and how they are as professionals, and they challenge themselves through it. But it's not their life, right? There is no workout that is their greatest. There is no workout that is the worst. They just show up and do the work, and they have a great perspective with some of them are married, some of them aren't, some of them have demanding jobs, some of them don't, but they all have that number one, which is a great perspective. And it really is, I think, a hard one when you think about triathletes in general, is to not put triathlon on the highest pedestal in your life, right? It needs to be at least second or third rung, like down from the top. And I think that's contrary to what a lot of coaches in society would tell you, but it's about being able to do it for a long period of time and finding love in it. Like I had this exact conversation with Hayden as we got out of the car, hitting up Home Depot earlier to get some flags for run camp. And he got, all he wants to do is math right now. That's it. All he wants to do is math. He'll get in the car. He brings a notepad with him and a pen. And he's like, all right, I'm going to give some my code and help me. I want to get these answers. So we get out of the car and he goes, I love math. I said, really? I said, why? Why do you love it? He said, well, I'm getting pretty good at it. I said, well, why are you getting good at it? He says, well, because I keep practicing. Mm-hmm. I said, but what's the number one reason? Well, because I keep practicing. I said, yeah, you do, but you keep practicing because you love it. And if you love it, you'll keep practicing at it. And if you keep practicing at it, then you'll be great at it. And it's not, I want to be great, so I'm great, right? It's not that I want to practice, so I have to practice. It's, I love it, so I want to do it. And that's the same type of trait that some of the best athletes work with have.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think that you kind of look at things and you have to figure out, well, how to love things. This last week, I've been doing pretty good. The last week, I kind of sloughed off a little bit and everything like that, but I'm not too worried about losing it. And I think that if you can figure out a way, just to, I feel like a broken record on this stuff, but like to find a way to really look forward to what you're doing that day. And I think a lot of people, maybe one of the good ways to do it is to, I know you work out early and a lot of people work out early. You mentioned the gratitude journal earlier, and I think that they're supposed to do that in the morning as well. And then kind of just release everything that's on your mind and get right into it and be able to focus on it and get it out of the way, because it's almost like, with life going on, you don't want triathlon hanging over you as the, damn, I got to do that later kind of thing or whatever. And if you get it done, I do notice that if I get things out of the way earlier sometimes with workouts, and I know I'll feel this way at run camp, it's one of those things that you get up and I don't want to do it, and then I get out and do it, and then I feel great. And then it's like, you did it, and now you can feel good about the rest of the stuff you got going for the rest of the day, and it's always something like that, because, even at run camp and this weekend, and we were talking about just for a little bit, I wanted to bring it back up because I think why I sleep so good up there is because it's simple, and I'm not constantly reminded by, things that are work or just different stuff that's always in your head. Maybe that's why your mom sleeps there. Good part of the reason that she sleeps well there, because everything's different. She's not walking around every corner and seeing, oh shit, I got to fix my counter or whatever. There's stuff like that always kind of gets in your head, but to get in there and figure out a way to love it. And I think a lot of times that comes down to like micro gaining and figuring out little things to work on. It sounds like that, Hayden's got a little thing going for math, and, maybe somebody can get a little something going for power, or getting the stroke down your swim, or finding those kind of things, especially right now, to really find that love for something without having to look at, shit, I got a race coming up and I just need to pound it,
One of the biggest things, and before we go on to the second one, is in kind of the, the meat is in the minutia. It's like you're not expecting to have some gigantic breakthrough on every workout, right? There isn't that expectation. The expectation is to do the work, and you do the work because you love it. And you do that and you do it over and over and over again. Then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you return from your 5-mile run 3 minutes faster, or you realize you're going, heart rate zone 2 and your power zone 3, right? Or you do your workout and you're hitting the lap button, all of a sudden you get out of the pool and you look down and you're like, oh my God, I'm like 10 seconds faster per 100. It didn't just happen, right? You had that quote unquote breakthrough workout, but you've been slowly breaking through that barrier. It's kind of like taking a hammer, and a chisel or whatever. And like each day you just kind of, he got on the other side of this piece of rock or whatever. It's like, it's it's this accomplishment or this goal. Each day you walk up and you chisel it off. Next day, wake up. Same thing. Next day, or you're trying to chop down a tree in the backyard and trying to accomplish this big thing and knock it down. You wake up one day, grab the axe, you go out of the tree, whack, one. That's it. Next day, boom. 3 or 4 or 5 days, maybe in 2 weeks later, you finally take a whack and it falls. You didn't just chop the tree down. I mean, that's what you see, that's what you hear, that's what you feel. That's the accomplishment that kind of goes through your bones, and you hear the tree crashing in the next to you, and the power and the feel of it. But you didn't just do it. You've been doing it, and it just now happened. It's the same mentality you have to waking up every day, swimming, riding, running, doing strength training, sleeping right, eating right, living right. You do those things, and the great things follow. And it really is. It's a short-term view that creates long-term gain. Right? Is to be able to just focus on that short-term thing. And speaking of long-term gain, that's where number 2 comes. Is they are big picture people. And what I mean by big picture people is they are not right now Randy. They are long-term Larry. And what I mean by that is they are in this for the process. They're in this for the opportunity, and they're in this for the long haul. They don't expect to get better overnight. They don't expect to get better today. They don't have an expiration date for when they want to do this. Like, we both get huge goals brought to our, it's like, it's one of the hardest parts of being a coach, right? It's like, I want to qualify for Boston. I want to finish an Ironman, and they've only done one sprint. I want to podium at this race. I want to, finish a 70.3 in under 6 hours. I want to qualify for Kona. Like that's all we get, right? We get that with every single person. But the great ones, they don't tell you, I want to do it next year. Because that immediately to me that's a warning sign. Like sirens go off. I'm like, wait a minute, what are you not going to be with us any longer? Like what's going on? Like are you have like a terminal illness? You're only going to be around for 11 more months. We have to do it now or never. I want to do it at some point in my career, at some point in my athlete life cycle. I want to achieve this. And they bring that to you, and then that's your job. And the best coaches will tell you, I don't know when this will happen. There's so many factors that go into being able to achieve things, but it's not a right now, right? There isn't an expiration date. There is no that mentality of, and you meet this person, I've got to do this right now. I've got to do this. I'm like, why? Like, lengthen things out. Like rushing through things is not a way to make, is to create longevity and to create success. Because the longer you do it, the better you get. And while you might be able to skip a few steps or to do a few hacks to get, if you want to break a 6 hour 7.3, you might squeak by at a 5:57, but then that's probably your limit. Unless you change things up, you're never going to get down to 5:30 or 5 hours. Right. And because also about putting limits on who you are and what you do. And I've shared this story plenty of times, but it goes with this. It's like the very first 70.3 I did at Gulf Coast, which is now Gulf Coast 70.3, but it was the very first 70.3 I ever did. I was either 608 or 613, and it's 6 years in a row. It took me 6 years to go from 613 to 434. I didn't ever have like I want to do this or I want to do that or I want to break this. It was, I just love doing it. And now all I want to do, and this is the best mentality you can have. And again, it goes back to one of the great things and one of the hardest things about coaching is I just want to keep getting better. Whatever that looks like, right? What it can look like if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, even your 50s. I just want to keep getting faster, right? And at some point, it turns into, I don't want to slow down anymore. Right. I want to keep hanging out. I want to keep chipping away. I don't think my day, like my best days are done. Right. Or this is I might not PR ever again, but this is the fastest time I've seen in 7 or 8 years. And like that's a huge deal. Like a huge deal. We had a guy run a half marathon this last weekend, fastest time since 2013. Like that's a long time ago. Doesn't seem like it is, but that's like what, 9, 10 years ago. Like that's the point, right? Is this endless pursuit of trying to get better with no expiration date, no deadline, and no finish time to their goal. It's they're bought into the big picture. They're big picture people, which is, I understand we don't know when this can happen. I understand that I can't force it, but I'm in. I'm in it for the big picture. I'm in it for the long haul.
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, we all do it though, but I'll get in there and I'll have a great workout one day, and then like the next day have a bad workout, and I'll be like, damn, I suck now. I mean, it's such a roller coaster ride. If you're not going to, I mean, how can you not have, it's so much easier to have a better perspective on the big picture and just enjoy it. I think, these society in a lot of ways kind of leads to that. I mean, Wisconsin just hired a new football coach. We were going down, and now we wanted the guy that was an interim guy, and now we hired another guy. Now everybody's like, 2 years, we're going to win it. We're going to be back in the Final Four. And it's just such a, societal thing too. I think that doing Ironman, I think I heard an ad for some 70.3 and couch to 70.3 in 24 weeks or something like that. Sort of like that mentality is right there. And I kind of did that. I really, if I look back on it, think I was probably kind of maybe a one and doneer in my mind. And I just poured it all in hard, and I went through it. And like we talked about many times before, I didn't really get gratitude out of the process, really. I mean, upon reflection, it was sort of like, oh, that was like, you look back and you see all those, at the time, torturous kind of days and stuff, and then they become great memories later in life. So how do you appreciate that along the way? And really, it's just, for me, it's so much about kind of turning it back into playing like a kid again or something, and doing the things that were fun and in ways that are fun, and not always like with your mind on that goal and getting to Kona. Cause I fell through that. I went through that for so long, and it just became a grinder to me. Now I'd look at training so much differently. I just kind of go about it in a way that it's something, I try to find things that I like about it and do manageable stuff. And then when I can ever get consistent enough, that's when I start pushing it. And then like you're saying, you see these little wins. Little wins along the way are where the joy comes in for me. And they are not major wins, but they do add up. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. And really, it's about a momentum. Big picture is all about like having faith and trusting the momentum, probably.
I think, and this always goes back to like, you and I have talked about it before, and you talk about your age, you talk about my age, even though you're like, yeah, but you're not that old. You're not old in general. It's like, what keeps gnawing at me in terms of wanting to continue to do what we do is, I just don't think I'm there yet. Right. I don't think I've reached that to where I've gotten my fastest. It's not like, yeah. And it's like, it used to be, like you said, I want to be on the podium more. I want to go to qualify for Kona. I want to qualify for World Championships. And here's the thing is that if you keep getting faster and you keep finding your best fast, and that's what your focus is, then the rest usually happens, right? It doesn't go the other way. It doesn't go the other way around, right? You have to focus on being faster and trying to make yourself faster, not giving yourself a timeline. Not that, I've got to be a Kona qualified next year, like that. You're just so much pressure, because what happens is when you don't do that, or you feel yourself, trending slower or getting to a point where you're not going to reach that, then you just fall back, right? But we all do it. Everyone does that. You don't add more hours. You just kind of mail it in. You self-sabotage. You're done. And again, it's like, if you want to be your fastest, if you want to be your best, you've got to do the sport for a long time. And that's just a fact. In order to do that, again, you got to have a great perspective, and you got to be a big picture person. And not only those two, but number 3, and the last one for today, first time we've ever said this on the podcast, you got to be consistent. We've said it a ton. You hear other people say it all the time. Consistency is king. And it's just a fact. It is something you cannot avoid. It is something you cannot shortcut. It is something you cannot hack. And it's being consistent. And that doesn't mean not taking days off. Again, consistency isn't perfection. Consistency is doing work 80 to 85% of the time, day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, year in and year out. That's it. But you have to be consistent, because that's where the gains are. Again, you might see a quick jump after 2 or 3 days of this, but then it's done, right? But long-term success and long-term fitness, building your aerobic engine, getting faster, being stronger, being more durable, that comes with consistency. It doesn't come overnight. And that's any coach will always tell you, the biggest predictor to performance is consistency. And again, it's not just in your last 8 to 10 to 12 weeks leading up to your A race, right? They'll be all like, oh, I'm back, baby. I got this. I'm like, yeah, but the 12 weeks before that, if you want to average it out, like you didn't do much of anything. And so it's 100% consistency in the best athletes we work with. Again, they get the most out of themselves, the most levels of improvement are the ones that are the most consistent.
Yeah, and consistency, honestly, man, to me that's a muscle. It's like just a habit to build, and it can be getting out of bed and doing something you're not feeling like doing, and just to get it done, and then the next day you might feel great or whatever. I'm going to give this analogy out to my friends in Indiana. I was up at the lake with a bunch of guys that used to play high school basketball and coaches and stuff like that, and we were talking about a guy named Rick Mount. Have you ever heard of that guy, by the way?
Rick Mount?
Yeah,
no.
he's supposedly he's
Rick Flair, but that's about it.
Rick Flair. Rick Mount was the they talk about Indiana's a basketball state, obviously, and he's supposedly the best shooter ever.
Are they still relevant in basketball?
That's a good one.
I mean, just saying, like
they think they're back this year. We're going to find out.
Of course, they think they're back.
Yeah, but Rick Mount is always in the argument for the best shooter in the history of Indiana high school, for sure, and. They were talking about how he took year-round like 500 shots a day. And you talk about consistency, man. It didn't really matter. They would talk about how he worked on leaning or falling to his right, falling to his left, falling back, leaning in, just shooting over and over and over. And it was, I'll argue that, just the fact that he did that every day, or, people always say that. He probably didn't do 500 a day. Maybe he did, but, a lot. And just to get that habit going makes that easier, right? The more you get up and you know how it goes. It's like when warm weather comes around, it's easier to kind of find a groove with stuff. But now I think that's sort of what I've been trying to do and not really necessarily nailed yet, is just trying to be consistent now, because it's the toughest time, and that's the muscle building. And now's the time to build that mental sort of habit, just to kind of keep going. And it doesn't have to be a monumental workout every day, but just something that keeps you going. And, you said earlier something about like, you're talking about, jobs and lives and everything kind of gets in the way and you can't prioritize triathlon. And I just think it's one of those things that maybe you don't prioritize triathlon, but you prioritize the habit of getting out there. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what it is necessarily, but if you can kind of move and get the movement as medicine thing going, that can be the priority, not the actual podium or not the actual, goals right now. Just kind of build that habit and consistency. And then, like you said, man, it just sort of takes care of itself.
Constant immersion into the thing you're trying to get better at is something I always go back to. And it's definitely not total immersion, but it is constant immersion. And it goes back to like, when I think about, I played tennis in high school and then 1 year of college. And after that, I was like assistant club pro, and for 2 summers, and that was the best I've ever been at tennis. When I go play in tournaments, or I play against some of the more seasoned collegiate guys or older guys around the club, I was the best I've ever been, and it wasn't because I played more. That's because I was teaching every day. I was talking about the fundamentals. I was talking about footwork. I was talking about how you hit the ball. I was showing kids how to do it, because I worked with both like from ages like 13 to like 70, just kind of like I do now. But it was because I was living it. It wasn't my life, but it was always top of mind, right? I was teaching and I was moving around. I wasn't, playing one. I wasn't playing singles against these 13, but I was always immersed in it, right? And I was consistent. I was consistent in hitting balls every day, right? Wasn't anything great. Wasn't playing, 5-setters every day against the creme de la creme. It was just, I was hitting balls every day. And it really is like going back to the guy shooting 500 shots or whatever it is. Or, I remember, hitting up against the backboard, or it's about just top of mind, doing it a ton. It's like, it's a whole lot like keeping good feel for the water.
Yeah.
You can go swim, and again, and this is different for athletes depending on their availability and where your pool is. But, if an athlete tells me like, hey, I can go swim for an hour and a half twice a week, or I can go 5 times a week for 35 minutes. go 5 times a week for 35 minutes because you'll get good feel for the water. You'll be able to focus and you'll do it more. Again, like I use this all the time when talking to athletes. Like if you want to get better at something, you have to do it more than you don't. Right.
Yeah.
And if you look at a 7-day week and the way most age group athletes train, they might only, run 3 days a week or swim 3 days a week or bike 3 days a week. And yes, we're all strapped by time and availability and things like that, but there's 7 days in a week. So so the simple math is if you're doing anything 3 times or less, you're doing it, you're not doing it more than you are doing it. And that's not the way to get better at anything, right? It's because it's too many negatives against a positive, right? And they all weigh the same, right? The more time away you have for it, the more negative impact it has. It's just consistency. And like you said, it's about boundaries and habit and just making the time. And again, when you've got a great perspective and you're a big picture person, the consistency comes easy. It comes first. It becomes second nature, right? Because you're not forcing it. It's not I have to work out today. This is just what I do. I don't have to do it. I'm not forcing myself to do it. I'm not going to do a 30-minute run and then, do jumping jacks and cheerleading moves in the driveway and show everybody what I just did. It's just like I click start. I run my 30 minutes. I come back. I walk back inside and get on my day. I don't look at the data and pick it apart. I don't think back. Oh, I wish I would have run that. Or I wish that. You just go out back inside and make your breakfast, move on with your damn day. That's it. And then you wake up the next day, you do it again. And you wake up the next day and you do it again. And you wake up the next day and it just becomes part of the fabric of your day-to-day life. It's intertwined. It falls in the same category as sleep, eat, live, brush your teeth, hang out with your family, figure out responsibilities. That's it. It falls into that. It's not this special category. When you're at your best and you have your best perspective, you're a big picture person and you're at your most consistent, it's just who you are. It's just what you do. And so when you're looking at this next year, you're trying to figure out, man, I really want to do this or really want to do that, or start at the beginning, right? What's going to allow me to work out enough and train enough to raise my FTP to this number or to drop my 5K time down to this number, right? You can't just force it. You can't just, I'm going to start you always start at the end and work your way backwards, not start at the end and stay there, right? I got to do this. I got to do that. It's what's going to get me to do this more often all the time. And that's the biggest focus you have to have is, all right, this will allow me to do this and this will allow me to do that. And if I can do this and I can do that, then I will get to where I'll be consistent. I can have a great perspective and be able to achieve these things. Like it's not, you can't force it. And just because you want it doesn't just appear. It doesn't come from forcing yourself to do workouts, doing it faster. It comes from being able to do it as long as, and doing more of it, right? In a smart, intelligent way, not, heading to the track 5 times a week because you want to drop your 5K time, right? It's about being able to run more, getting better running economy. Same thing with swimming. If people make excuses all the time, I just can't get better at swimming. How many days a week do you swim? Twice. Well, there you go. I mean, and here's $20 for your copay for your therapy session. Like that was an easy one, but that's what it is. People don't look back. Oh, I'm not getting better because I'm not choosing to do what's required to get better, or I like the thought of getting better. I just don't really know how to get better or what to do to get better. So I do less of it because I hate that I'm not getting better at it. So I become allergic to it, which we all do. And then now I wonder why I'm stuck. And so, again, we'll go through 4, 5, and 6 on our next episode, but that's it. Number 1, great perspective. Number 2, big picture people. Number 3, be consistent. Do those things. Listen to this podcast over and over and over again. Ask yourself, am I that person? Am I that person? Am I that person? If you're not that person, if you're not that athlete, that's fine. But guess what? Changing those things first is a better way. It's so much easier, in my opinion, to change those things, to change those thought patterns, to change that perspective, to commit to being consistent. Again, you're not committing and guaranteeing yourself to be perfect. You're not asking for perfection, right? But I can be consistent. I can make a commitment to 85, 90% of my workouts for the year. I can do that. I can be a big picture person. I can be those 3 things. Those are so much easier to commit to and guarantee yourself and work on than it is to think, all right, this month I'm going to take 2 minutes off my 5K. Good luck. Like that's a huge ask. So take these 3, work hard at them, ask yourself these questions. Again, if you don't check that box, ask yourself, all right, what can I do to check that box to set myself up better for a much better 2023?
Yep. Sounds simple enough, man.
the hardest things in life are the ones that sound the most simple.
No, I agree.
As always, we love you. We appreciate you. We'll finish off 4, 5, and 6 on podcast 638. But as always, go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for coaching for the next year, you can always click on the coaching tab and peruse the coach that's right for you. We also still have our 2023 race-specific plans that are available. You can find all that information as well on the website. And as always, if you need Mike, he's available, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you need anything from me, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. You summed it up.
We'll see you next time.
All right, buddy. See you.